Hello and welcome back to the MMA Split podcast. I am Josh. With me here on split screen is Matt, and we're going to be breaking down UFC 278, Edwards versus Usman, and new shit. Where else to start, man? Second English UFC champ. Matt, how fucking G'd up were you for this?
Well, first and foremost, Josh, thank you for taking over my presenting duties for this episode. As you people can see, I am not in my usual studio. I am on holiday visiting my dad. I did not bring all of my equipment, though. I'm operating on limited Wi-Fi, so I've also had to remove all of my screen brightness to keep my battery life going for this. So literally, I can see nothing. I can see nothing in front of me. So Josh is my eyes. He is your guide for this episode. And I am delivering so many fucking I told you so's because, well, let's just get this out of the way. I thought Leon Edwards can win. I think all of us thought Leon Edwards could win.
Yep.
But did anybody think stepping in for round 5 in that situation that he was going to pull it out the fire like he did? Fuck no, man. Me and Sylvester at the flat were watching this live. I kid you not, 2 minutes before it happens, I'm saying this fight was over 2 rounds ago. Sly is packing his shit up, ready to go back downstairs. End of night, fight's over. I'm going back to bed. And then it lands, man. And it doesn't just land, it lands perfectly. For anybody saying that's a Hail Mary kick, hell fucking no, man. He throws that combination, he trains that combination. He used the jab to find the distance, the left hand to move Usman to the right. And there it is, man. It was just
knocked out Paul Pivac with that combination. We've seen it all before. That head kick was there as well. Throughout the fight, that head kick was there. It was just getting the setup right. And but let's be real. I don't think Leon Edwards believed going into that 5th round that he was going to get the opportunity for it. I don't know if his corner really believed.
Well, his corner, my word, did they do their part? I mean, Jesus Christ. I recommend anybody. So BT Sport has released the corner advice given to him in between the rounds, 2, 3, and 4. And that's inspirational enough as it is. But if you really want to get those hairs tingling on the back of your neck, just look it up. You can find that same clip, but with the Rocky music added on as well. And it is just perfect. And listen, I'll tell you what, man. When we talk about, and we're going to talk about what a momentous moment this was, what all the challenges were facing Leon Edwards. We are going to talk about the other fights, but I'm not going to lie. A big portion of this show is going to be the Leon Edwards appreciation show. That is just fact. We got other stuff to cover, but Leon had everything against him in this situation. Everything. And, you know, for a guy that people didn't want to give the shot to, wasn't considered an exciting fighter, wasn't considered a big personality, was really forgotten about, was booed in 2019 in London in front of his own fans because he did the sensible approach to beat Gunnar Nelson and make sure he won that fight, showing high fight IQ. But there's an old expression, people won't remember what you did, they'll remember how you made them feel. And in that one moment, that split-second moment that he landed that kick, he didn't just become champ. He cemented himself into the legacy of the UFC, of mixed martial arts, and into the hearts of MMA fans everywhere, in a way that guys that try all the shtick don't accomplish in their entire careers. He got a whole stadium full of American fans to scream and chant his name, his ring name, Rocky, after he pulled that off. And for all the guys to do it, his ring name is Rocky, and he wins the title like that. Are you fucking kidding me? It's too good, man. It was meant to be. It's written in the stars.
Well, I was fucking impressed with that first round. So I'd really love to start that first round first of all. Getting that trip on Usman, maintaining that top control. First time anyone's ever landed a takedown on Usman in the UFC. This is a Kamaru Usman who's on the cusp of equaling Anderson Silva's win streak. Was it beating or equaling? Equaling, I believe.
It was to equal it. It was to equal it. It would have been his 7th title defense, 16th straight win in the UFC, 20th straight win in his career, having only ever lost his 2nd fight.
To Alex Caceres' brother, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
But, man, all these people talking about how Usman's going to just tear him apart in a rematch, already heavily favoured on the speculative odds. Man, that first round kind of showed me something. You know, Usman fights a damn near perfect fight, makes a few little mistakes here and there, but the complacency in that first round, I have a lot of hope, a lot of reason to believe that Rocky could win a decision against this guy. And we talked about in the pick show, is this the best time to fight Usman, the right time? And I said it's a better time, but I think the best time is going to be a little way down the road, depending on how far away this rematch is. I'm really kind of liking Rocky in a rematch here as well. I think he's going to take that trilogy 2-1.
Okay, so this is my thought, and I want to talk about the elephant in the room that none of us really considered to its full potential when we talked about this on the pick show. The altitude fucked this card, man. The altitude fucked this card. It is ridiculous. Nobody apart from the last two guys on the card make enough money from this to fly out the required amount of time beforehand. And Leon Edwards, I didn't really want to say it, but I've heard a lot of people say 2 to 2.5 weeks is a death sentence if you're trying to acclimatise. It puts you in the worst middle of it, basically, where you
he's been spending longer in the altitude tent as well. And I have been told before, and I'm not an expert on it, but I've been told before that the best thing to do is to train at sea level and then spend your recovery time at altitude. And I don't know how good it is simulated altitude in an altitude tent, but if that is what he was doing and the simulated altitude is as good as actually living up on top of the mountain, then he probably was doing it about as well as you can do it. It's not going to make it the same fighting at altitude as fighting at sea level, but in terms of creating those extra red blood cells, making your VO2 recovery more efficient, I have been told that the science behind it is train at sea level, recover at altitude. So I don't know. Obviously, everyone's going to look a little tired and a little laggy, but if that is right, and you can simulate it the same way Leon did, then it's kind of on them. The technology's there. I don't know how much an altitude test is going to cost, but it's going to be a lot cheaper than spending 2 months training at altitude, say like Verdun did in Mexico City.
A month, the Verdun method. That's what you needed to do, and the proof is in the results. So the only person on this card who did not look like they were the only two people on this card who did not look like they were severely affected from the altitude was Merab Dashvili, who I'm really sorry. That guy sleeps by plugging himself into a Duracell battery recharger every single day. The guy is a human dynamo. He doesn't get tired, and even he wasn't as energetic as he usually is. And Usman, who funnily enough spent this entire camp training at altitude. That's how you do it. Like Usman, this was so well set up for Usman to be in the best situation. And for Leon Edwards, who would have thought that he was going to be adjusted and has said himself, round one, everything's fine. Soon as I go after the bell for round two, I can just feel that nothing's right. Everything's dead. It's like my body's shutting down. And you can see that in his performance. The drop off from round one to round two for a guy like Leon, who has got and shown to have 5-round cardio consistently in his in his fights that he's had that go that distance, has never had a cardio issue. It just looks like, and I remember watching it thinking, oh no, the altitude's catching him too. 2.5 weeks wasn't enough. The fact that he had to deal with that and the mental burnout. You're fighting a guy that's beaten you before. It's your first championship fight. There's an adrenaline dump from that as well. And you have all of these things go against you, and then you pull it out the fire like that. The rematch is in London, or the rematch we know is going to be in the UK, almost certainly. Even if it isn't, what I can guarantee you is that it is not going to be at a high altitude. That round one Leon, if he can just keep that for 4 rounds, and I know for a fact that the Leon Edwards I've seen at sea level can do that, he's a better fighter than Usman fully fit when they're both fresh. In my opinion, I think his jiu-jitsu is better. I think being on bottom, he's a lot better than Usman is on bottom. I think he's definitely not as strong and physical, but he's got the technique. And
he doesn't have them shitty knees.
Doesn't have the shitty knees. seems fresh at 31 in a way that Usman didn't seem fresh at 31, at 30, 31 when he became the champ. This is really well set up for Leon. And Usman is 35 years old. It's his first knockout. You don't even know how a knockout like that, you don't necessarily take a shot as well afterwards.
Well, we're going to talk about that a lot more in the co-main. You know, the value of resting a broken chin or a waning chin. But yeah, man, we learned that Usman not very good at all off his back. So
no.
I've got a lot of reasons to believe that Rocky doesn't need a knockout in the trilogy match. He's going to be able to get away with the decision here. I can see Rocky taking at least 3 rounds.
All of those disadvantages won't be present in the same way, man. The adrenaline dump, well, it's not your first title shot. You're the champ now. You just beat this guy. You carry that confidence going in. The fact that he's not going to have the altitude to deal with, huge factor. Rematches almost always favor the younger man. If you're the younger man and you won the previous fight, you tend to be massively statistically more likely to win. And it's gonna be in London, man. Are you kidding? This guy has turned on the same night that we saw Anthony Joshua fail in his rematch against the pound-for-pound great, and then disgrace himself on the microphone afterwards. Rocky sees that moment, and I think that confidence is going to carry him. I think he has all the recipes to be an absolute national treasure. And I don't know if you maybe want to talk about the fight a little bit more, and we definitely need to talk about the head kick, but for a guy that people say lacks personality, that post-fight speech, man, I mean, from the heart, real, believable, emotional.
How much do you think the Americans could understand of that?
Probably very little, but I think they could understand the emotion.
Yeah. Well...
And that...
Sorry, go on. What are you going to say, Matt?
I was going to say, and after years of Usman, listen, Usman has been a remarkable champion. A remarkable champion. Steroid potential aside, the guy has fought regularly. He has fought the best competition. He has delivered fantastic performances. He has deserved to be champion. He is an all-time great welterweight, just behind GSP in my rankings. But fuck me, this guy's cringy. And there's very few times that you've seen him in post-fight interviews where it's really felt like it's from the heart, aside from that title win. And he never showed the kind of emotion and realness and vulnerability that Leon did. And some of the lines he said in this, you know, the look at me now you can put on t-shirts. My favorite one is, there is no pound for pound, the belt belongs to nobody. What a framework, what a mindset to have.
Yeah, well, even if they did have an actual credible pound for pound list, which they don't really, although Volkanovski's on top now, which I don't argue with. But even if they did have a proper credible pound for pound list, no one would really give a shit. Like, it would only be something you talk about in between fights and defending your belt. Like, come the actual fight, that you have one fight at a time. You fight the fighter in front of you. The next contender is always the most dangerous because it's the next fucking contender. Everything else is in the rearview mirror. So it's the necessary mindset. It's the only mindset as a competitor. Like, who gives a fuck about paper champions? Who gives a fuck about paper pound for pound champions? It's all just bullshit.
True.
But yeah, man, one of my favourite things from this fight is the way that Rocky was able to go foul for foul with Usman as well. Not that Herb Dean seemed to give a shit, but...
No, you mean where only Leon's fouls ever got called?
Yeah, and if it got to the point where he'd taken a point or something, then I'd have something to say about Herb Dean. But as it is, he never quite got that far apart from resetting that one position.
Dude, we want to talk about it. Can we talk about the fact that every time Usman gets kicked in the liver, he basically gets given a nutshot amount of time to recover by the referee?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how
3 fights it's happened.
I thought the heel carried through on that one. I thought the heel caught his cup.
No,
the shot, the toes landed on the belt line, but the heel looked like it followed through and caught his cup there. So I'm willing to give him some leniency on this one. I think he I think he got some bruised bollocks off the back of that. But yes,
Well, either way,
he does milk him.
that he does. But listen, that's what you got to do, man. Like, as Leon's coaches were telling him after round 4, after round 3, they're like, you need to get fucking ugly out there. And then that round 4 speech, man. You know, I think Din Thomas was right. Leon was a most mentally broken guy when he went back to his corner. The one thing I disagree with Din on is that I think when his coach said to you, stop feeling sorry for yourself, I think that connected with him. I think that's the moment that he did make that eye contact that had been missing from the previous 2 rounds. And I think that's the moment that he kind of woke up. And really, if you look at that 5th round, it was better from Leon. And it didn't feel like he was panicking or just like letting the moment get away from him. He is a sniper. He was just
Usman
looking
eased up
for that moment.
Usman let the pressure go. I don't know if he was feeling tired or if he was feeling complacent. But Usman changed his approach a little bit in that round. And honestly, I don't know how mentally broken Leon was before that. Because I think if he hadn't had the opportunity to land that head kick, then there'd probably be a lot of people saying like, yeah, he just wasn't ready for it, he wasn't in there. I think the guy was just trying to feel out the right moment. And as soon as Usman made a simple mistake, fucked up for him, bit on the straight, slips out to the right, and then just shin to chin, good night Vienna. But
It really goes to show, though, I know that wrestling's the most important martial art in mixed martial arts, and there's no doubt about that. And it's a huge reason why Usman's been such a great champion and as dominant as he's been. But that difference, man, when you fight a striker, not a Colby, not somebody that's become a lot better at striking and mixes it in with the wrestling and throws in volume and cardio, when you have a true precision striker, man, it is different. You are never safe when that fight is on the feet.
yeah. And that kick was fucking there. It was there throughout most of the fight.
Yeah, and I think this is the mistake that people made when they overlooked Leon. They just thought, oh, well, he can't really wrestle. You know, Colby is the best chance, or Hamzat, and, you know, Colby lost to him twice. It's like, well, Colby can't hurt him with one strike the way that Leon can. And that's an equalizer. And that's something as well. You got to think, for Usman going into this trilogy fight, man, what is his confidence level going to be? Because he is not, you know, momentum is such a huge thing in martial arts and in sport in general. And when you've won your last 19 fights and you dominate people the way that you have, you think you're invincible. When somebody takes that away from you, it can affect the way that you fight in a good way, and it can affect it in a bad way. It can also be something that you dismiss. If he thinks Leon just got lucky, and that he just needs to do what he does and he's going to be fine, I think he's going to find that he's in for a rough ride.
I don't think Whitman's going to let him believe that. But Whitman is going to put him in the mentality that if he doesn't make that mistake, he wins that fight. Okay, and it wasn't like it was a flawless 24 minutes. Okay, fucked up the first round and made several mistakes throughout the fight that created that opportunity for Leon to just read it one final time with a minute to go. But he will believe that he has the skills to beat Rocky. Fair enough, a lot of people, all the bookies agree. But he's damned if he doesn't, damned if he doesn't right now. Because if he rushes this one, then he's going to be coming back in before he's really had a chance to recover. And we're going to talk about the value of that with Luke Rockhold on the co-main. But if he rushes this, and he wants this rematch within 12 months or something, and he's sparring again within 6 and shit like that, it's going to be a lot easier for for Rocky to tag him. It's going to be easier for Rocky to drop him. It's just going to be a problem. And if he waits too long, I don't know how many years he's got left in his knees. I don't know how many years he's got left in his body as a whole to be fighting at the highest of high levels. He's kind of fucked. You know, he can't have it well. Whatever he does, it's fucked. It's a poison chalice. He's got no good options now.
He's at a bad age, being so close to his all-time great status being cemented for this to happen. He really is, because if he's 33, I don't think this is the same kind of panic. Or if he's in the Amanda Nunes situation where you go, listen, like, I can point at major factors that went wrong in my preparation for this. I did not get knocked out in the same way. I got tired and I got choked out, but I'm not recovering from the same level of kind of brain damage in the same way. And there isn't the same level of competition in front of me. Usman, this is, I mean, it's tough, man. He was a minute away from, I mean, he's already an all-time great, but he was a minute away from really starting to be like, is this the greatest of all time kind of conversations? And in one moment, man, it's taken away. And can we just say this as well? All of this light heavyweight talk needs to stop with Usman. Like, if there's a humility I'm glad he experiences from this, it's the fact that, like, shut up, you're not jumping up 2 weight classes.
Well, let's be real. That's because if he beats Rocky last weekend, then who else is he gonna fight? Is he really gonna want to risk it with Hamzat Chimaev? Or
True.
he's not gonna fight Adesanya. They got the Nigeria connection. He's just not interested in it. So 205 just seems like the logical thing because if you win, you've done one better than GSP did coming back and fighting at 185 and taking the belt there. And if you lose, who gives a fuck? You never belonged in light heavyweight anyway. So I think he was kind of looking at it as I'm going to equal Anderson Silva's win streak. I'm going to clear out the division, bar one or two ugly monsters coming through that I want no part of. And I might get a nice little legacy uptick by doing something ridiculous like winning the belt at 205 and skipping a whole weight class. So I kind of see the logic in it. But obviously, he can't win now and then move on. It's just, there's no reason to give a welterweight champ a shot at 205. It's just fucking needless. So, if he beats Rocky, he's going to have to fight Chimaev. And then that'll probably be it. Win or lose, I think that's going to take enough of his soul out that will be the last fight. I don't see it happening. I think Rocky's going to win.
All champions have their reign, man. And reclaiming the belt is one of the single hardest things to ever do. Because, particularly when you've had a long reign, because situations change, man. And I feel this might be Rocky's time. And I'm so delighted for him, man, because this is a guy who needed to have that belt around his waist to really make this life-changing, this career for him. Because there's guys, listen, Colby Covington, even if he never picks up that strap, he is going to make money after his UFC career. Jorge Masvidal will make money after his UFC career. He's already made a lot of money. Both of those guys have. This moment, it's not just made Leon Edwards a star, in my opinion. It's changed his life. And I know you hate Ariel Helwani. He did an interview with Ariel, and it's just, the guy is so fucking real, man. He burst into tears halfway through for like a minute. And it's just, you can see how much it means to him and how he wears his heart on his sleeve and how he's just himself. And I think he's going to be a champion that is just himself. And for England to finally, after Michael Bisping, have another champ, and to have a guy named Rocky who does it that way and has people chanting Rocky. I already have the image in my mind of him walking out in front of the O2 for the trilogy fight and a whole stadium of people chanting Rocky after cheering on Paddy the Baddy for earlier on that main card,
Yeah, if they do it in the UK, it's primed to be a huge fucking card. They do it next year, it's going to be one of the biggest cards of the year, no doubt. Hopefully Aspinall will be in contention for returning in a similar kind of time frame. I think they're probably going to hold off. I think we might have to wait as much as, maybe as late as like May, April for it. I really don't know what Usman's going to be pushing for in terms of the rematch dates.
I hope his ego gets the better of him. It's an ego thing. If he says March, that's ego. If he's smart, he'll try and wait until the summer.
Yeah.
But listen, you know what, man? And this is what I was thinking as well. No matter what happens from here on out, Leon Edwards, and I know you'll never watch this, but if you ever do, this is what I'd say to you, man. It's all gravy, man. Everything from this moment in is gravy. You don't defend the belt, it doesn't. It's not going to matter. You do defend the belt, great, but it's all fucking gravy, man. Every day from now on, it's gravy. You got that.
I hope
you
so.
Got that.
Because his brother was probably this close to making more money than him in Bellator. That's going to be different now. It's going to be different now, but that's probably what he was on.
Hey, put it this way, I think people love it. I know people love an underdog, but Usman was not a beloved champion. I think Rocky could be. And Usman knew it. We look at his reign.
In the UK.
The one thing...
They're never going to take to
Hey,
him in
man.
America.
I think, dude, I've seen videos, man. Have you not seen the reaction videos of people online?
Yeah, but when you start putting him on shows and stuff, the accent... Look, Americans can't understand me when I talk. They got fucking no hope, the average American, of understanding Rocky. It's just...
Dude,
it's one of them unfortunate things. What's her fucking name got kicked off the American X Factor? Cheryl Tweedy, Cheryl Cole.
Cheryl Tweedy, Cheryl Cole.
Like, do you know what I mean? It's very important to them, all the enunciation and everything else. I don't know, he could be big in Europe, he's going to be huge in the UK, rightfully so, but I don't know.
Well, either way, it's still by comparison. The thing that Usman did very intelligently in his reign is he fought popular people, or people that had a following. He was very happy to be the heel to a certain extent against the more beloved guy, knowing that that beloved guy is going to get more numbers in and essentially make him more money. But he never was truly, he was respected, he was feared, he was never beloved. I don't think he ever had a moment where he felt the kind of love that Leon felt in that stadium when he landed that kick.
In that moment, yes, but that's already dissipated. Leon's not up there with like Ronda Rousey, BJ Penn, GSP, Chuck Liddell. He is a respected champ, but he's going to be coming in as an underdog in the rematch. The American's going to be talking shit about him no end when the fight gets rebooked. I think that if he's able to beat Usman again and then Chimaev after, then he's going to be a big fucking name in the sport. But I don't want to get too carried away with the hyperbole, because this is a huge fucking win for him. But it's a life-changing situation in terms of his options afterwards, as a pundit, as a commentator, or just offering commentary on some level, like be it in post-fight shows or whatever. But he's going to be bigger than Dan Hardy now, put it that way. But I don't know how it's going to translate internationally. I think that's going to be very much like a UK European thing for him.
Hey, give it time. Let's see how this unfolds. But it's a sport, man. I don't know. Anderson Silva couldn't speak great English, but he produced those moments, man. It's in the social media generation to have a head kick knockout like that. I think it's what the sport needed. It's what the division needed. I think it's got everybody talking. And yeah, he needs to win his next couple of fights to really establish himself. And fuck me, both of those fights are going to be hard ones. Either whether it's Usman next, then Chimaev, or Chimaev, then Usman, whatever ends up happening. Those two are the next guys. And that Chimaev fight is tough. But man, it's all gravy, dude. You did it. You brought it back to the UK. And differential from Michael Bisping, you did it being trained in the UK.
Yeah,
so,
and just a quick aside, like, I don't know that necessarily Nate Diaz isn't going to surprise people again. So, Chimaev's got some work to play first.
I'll tell you fucking what, man. I mean, nothing's off the table now. Let's just remind ourselves. It's like I was watching the Man United Liverpool game yesterday. 2 minutes left and at a time, my dad goes, "Oh, I think this game's over." I'm just like, dude, after the weekend I've had, man, not a chance. I'm watching this get to the whistle.
Fucking,
wow.
Yeah, the beautiful game. But yeah, you can't count anything out. MMA, anything can happen. This, like we said, this wasn't necessarily what happened with Rocky though. That was a shot that was there multiple times throughout the fight, set it up beautifully, and what a clean knockout. What a clean fucking knockout. You kick the sweat off the man's face and shoulders. I haven't seen a knockout that beautiful in slow-mo since Usman fucking took out Masvidal the second time. So
yeah, that was a good punch, to be fair.
That was one of those slow motion sweat, just looks like the soul leaving your body as it comes off. It's just sort of Masvidal shaped sweat puddle flying through the air, Usman shaped sweat soul puddle flying through the air. Just a beautiful thing. In an anime, if it was in an anime, you would have seen the face of the ghost leaving, the soul just leaving the body.
Agreed. Can I say as well that no reaction to watch online was sweeter?
You gonna say than Colby's?
Then the reaction. No, Colby's was great. Colby's was great, but Henry Cejudo's.
I haven't seen that one.
He's next. He's live. He's videoing his reaction, or somebody's videoing him as he's watching the fight, and it gets to a minute before the punch lands. It's in the kick lands. It's in the 5th round, and he smiles, looks across at Ali Abdelaziz, and goes, "Hey, Ali, easy money, bro. Easy money." Said it was a tough fight. Easy money. And then obviously a minute later, Abdelaziz has got his hands in his head crying, and Henry Cejudo's got this look in his face like, "Oh, is this me? Did I just jinx this motherfucker?" Can we?
I thought you meant he was saying easy money sarcastically after the knockout. So you were saying easy money right before the knockout.
Yeah, he was saying is that Usman's got this easy money, and then because obviously they're boys, they're all managed by Ali.
Yeah, who's kind of a piece of shit and not someone I like very much, but
I know.
Fuck it anyway.
One thing I want to talk about as well is, and a few people have made videos on this, but very much led from Tyron Woodley's response to it. He was doing an interview with somebody, and he was asked about how he felt about seeing Usman got knocked out, and he said, my immediate thought was, the guy's brought his really young daughter live to watch this fight, and she's probably in the front row, having just watched her dad get knocked out quite brutally, being old enough to be aware of what that is, but not aware enough to understand that like he's going to be okay afterwards.
Yeah, was it Rashad Evans was sat with the Usman family, said it was quite traumatic having to watch that knockout with all his family there.
She got carried out literally crying her eyes out. And it does kind of raise a question of just like, I get why he wanted to do it, but I don't know if it's a smart idea. Like, it's not like bringing your kids to watch a football game, you know?
Which in itself can be a huge fucking mistake. I have some real shocking horror stories about kids going to football games, which we should save for a separate podcast episode. Next time we do a bullshit NMA Dave episode, remind me to crack out some of these stories. Alright, let me... Okay, this is the shorter one out of the two really funny ones I can think of. So, a bunch of my friends that lived up in London when I lived there were also from Bournemouth, but were Southampton fans, because I'm pretty much the only Bournemouth fan from Bournemouth that's of my generation. And we went to go see Palace at Selhurst Park, which is a real shitty fucking stadium. Great for atmosphere, great fans. But it's a real piece of shit stadium. You actually get down to the bare bones of it. And in front of us, clearly, because it's a husband and wife, and I'm going to say about a 16-year-old daughter and then maybe a 12-year-old daughter. And the way the elder daughter and the mum are dressed up, I'm pretty sure the dad had told them they were going out for a day trip in London, and then just snuck in like, but first we're going to go watch the game. So they're not very impressed with their husbands. They're sat just in front of us and off to the side a little bit. And at one point, there's little girls chastising her dad for calling the referee a wanker, fuck you, lino, all of this. Like, Dad, don't use that language. Dad, don't say stuff like that. At one point, my mate Lewis is going to the referee, and she is just turned around in her seat, just stood looking at Lewis, just staring him in the eyes as he's chugging imaginary cock because he thinks this referee's a cocksucker. So I nudge him, hey Lou, like, kids watching. And Lewis goes, don't worry, mate, she'll have real dicks in her face soon enough. Now the dad, all I can see is his shoulders just going, and and then just the wife and the older daughter just smacking him on the shoulders and stuff. What the fuck is wrong with you? Don't laugh at that. Unbelievable. Don't take your kids to football, because well, at least don't take your kids to football in England, or not the south of England, because people are scumbags. You know, I watched a lot of football. There are lots of nice people there. Bring your wife, bring your kids of a certain age. But just understand every now and again, it's going to be some horrible shit. And it's a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah,
it's at the best it's ever been.
Don't bring your kids, but don't bring, like, your 4-year-old. Don't bring your
Yeah.
5-year-old. And the problem is with MMA and sports is that most of them don't have older kids than this. Like, there's not that many guys in their early 30s with a 14-year-old.
No. No, the only ones I can think of are the ones that are fighting in their 40s, like Randy Couture and that. Brock
Yeah, I mean,
Lesnar's
obviously, if you
daughter's
get on.
getting into MMA now. I think she's like 20, something like that. So she would have been quite young when he was a champion.
Yeah, but I never remember her I never remember him bringing her to fights.
No, I don't. Well, you know, Brock was a showman as well. You know, played the heel to the bitter end. So then the last thing you want is to bring your family to one of your fights. It's not
Very
all right.
true.
It's nice sometimes, and some fights is kind of the culture for them. It's not that big a deal. Obviously, watching your old man get knocked out clean like that, brutal. But he released that Instagram post the following day of him and his daughter playing on the plane. He seems to be in good spirits. I'm sure she's fine too. I mean, the guy has done enough. He is right there behind GSP, greatest welterweight of all time. And if he does get his belt back, which I don't think he would, but if he does, there's not a lot of people that have done that at 170.
No.
GSP, Matt Hughes.
Matt Hughes.
Is that it? Is that the whole
It's
list?
the only ones I can think of. It's the only ones I can think of.
So he would be in a very esteemed company there, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's a close fight going into that rematch. If they do, like, we talk about it like it's a foregone conclusion, but anything can happen with injuries and everything else.
This is
But
true.
assuming the MMA gods don't screw us out of this one, we get that trilogy fight. On paper, for me, it's quite close, but I really see Rocky taking it. I just saw so much in that first and fifth round, and just a few little mistakes from Usman here and there that Rocky didn't capitalise on until the final fucking minute. But, you know, people say he's only got the hard kicks and not the hard hands. You know, watching the first fight between them, he tagged Usman with those hooks a few times. He's got these weapons. He's just a little too dangerous for me, for Usman to be able to get past him in this third one.
He's lethal on the feet, effortlessly and with technique in a way that, and sophistication in a way that Usman doesn't have. And him fit, not at altitude, I think he can wrestle with Usman, and I think his jiu-jitsu's better. Really? My view, I've said this before, I said it already, but I'll repeat it. If you can win like that on your worst fucking night with everything against you, I have to think you've got a good shot at winning when some of those things are going to be in your favour.
Yeah. Some people will live up to playing the dog as well. So if he is coming into this rematch at home, being the underdog, it's going to take a lot of the pressure off. It's just going to be like all green lights. It's going to be like the stars have aligned for him, I think.
Couldn't agree more. With that being said, shall we talk about the co-main event?
I don't want to move on, but if we must, because this was actually really fucking fun.
I'm on 16% battery, so
let's fly through them.
Obviously, we don't need to talk about the rest of the fights in the same level of detail.
We're gonna focus on the top three, and everything else is just gonna go fucking quick as shit.
Nice. This is the MMA Fighting on SBN asked this question. Is this the worst best fight ever, or is this the best worst fight ever?
It's a little unfair because both these guys have real hard fucking shots. They did a lot of damage. There was some poor technique there. But Luke Rockhold, coming from a 3-year layoff, was a lot better than I thought he was going to be. And to be honest, his fucking chin, the shots that he took,
Some hits, man.
I saw a graphic on it. I think on average,
bleeding.
yeah, across his last few fights before taking the time away, he was absorbing about 2/3 as many head strikes and getting knocked down. And he took all of those heavy shots from one of the hardest hitting guys in the division, some of them quite clean, and, you know, didn't get knocked out, just fucking managed to ride the storm out all the way to the end of the fight. Tried to give him a bit of a blood transfusion. Oh, and actually, you want to talk about fun reactions. This fight, and with the main event, just Joe Rogan full on practicing his dementia face.
Yeah.
Those were the best reactions.
Well,
this guy is just getting too cartoony.
these guys were. I felt it was them and the heavyweights that we're going to breeze through, but talk about guys that big not being given a chance to acclimatise to that altitude, man. They were fucked, dude. Luke Rockhold was spent before the first round was over. Paulo
Yeah.
Costa, you know, I'm actually impressed with Paulo Costa's cardio, but you could tell that he kind of burnt himself out in those first 6 or 7 minutes as well. But it doesn't matter because it led to just this. I've never seen somebody lose with so much fucking gusto and pride and heart, and knowing it's his last fight, as we know, once he announced it afterwards, and everything that he had to deal with, and the damage that he took, but just this willingness to grit through, like he just, and it, I think he still hates Paulo Costa. I think part of this was just like,
Oh, really?
not you.
You think him
Not
rubbing
you.
his blood into his eyes and mouth at the end of the fight for no reason other than to be like, fuck you. Of course he hates Paulo Costa. Do you see
Yeah,
what
it was
they
just
wrote,
like,
him and Izzy, on Instagram afterwards?
no.
He showed a thing of like after the fight, him losing everything. And Usman, Rockhold writes, still a bitch though. And Izzy's like, yeah, he's always been my bitch. And Usman's like, Rockhold's like, lol or fucking lol or something afterwards. I need to pull it up, to be honest. But just, yeah, that he hates Costa. Everybody hates Costa. Costa's pretty fucking hateable. I mean, whatever happened with that story
Which
about
is
him
weird.
elbowing a nurse in the face trying to get a vaccination card without the vaccine? Like, nothing ever seemed to
Yeah.
come of that. Thank God you live in Brazil, I guess.
I'll tell you what as well, when he was walking out, man, there was an energy to him that just made me think. I looked across and I was like, oh man, Luke's about to have the worst 2 minutes of his life. And for Luke to dig in and just be like, no, Jan Blachowicz, fucking world champion. I can live with that. Yoel Romero, arguably should have been world champion. I mean, only stopped being an interim champion by point 2. I can accept that. Michael Bisping, all right, that hurts, but at least he became the champ, like Hall of Famer. I can live with that. Vitor Belfort, TRT steroid motherfucker, like still a former champ. I can live that. I can live with those knockouts. It was like, not you, not you. You don't get that prize. And I'll tell you what, man, some of the fucking technique that Luke showed, dude. It makes you wonder, man, if with a bit more focus, fixing some of those defensive holes earlier in his career, and that kind of hunger and will. I mean, the tornado kicks, some of the body kicks he threw. The guy has got such technique,
Yeah.
such awesome technique, and the
4
heart he showed in that
roundhouses
third
to the ribs in a row. That's not easy to land. That's not easy to throw that many times moving forward. He is a fucking
No.
beast. But what do you think? Maybe, obviously, if he'd fixed his defense earlier on, he would have had a better, longer career. But maybe even just taking more time off in between knockouts and taking more time off to recover after knee surgeries and staph infection. What kind of Rockhold would we have seen? Because we've talked about it before, that balance between technical sparring and hard sparring and staying active and recovery time after knockouts. But Jesus Christ, if old man chinny ass fucking Rockhold can take all that damage over 3 rounds at 37, and all it really took was taking 3 years off. All it took was 3 years off. You know what I mean? All it took was taking the time to recover properly. Like, fucking hell. How many other chinny fighters could have maybe saved the day? Johnny Walker.
I know what you're saying.
He's just fucked,
I think Luke was very much a victim of situation. If you look at the timing of the knockouts and the people that land, I think one factor is, as though I do think Costa hits hard, I wouldn't necessarily consider him like a one-punch knockout guy, if you know what I mean. He's more of a overwhelm you with volume and heavy kind of consistent power.
If he hits you clean, he's
say
a knockout guy. But he has such sloppy technique,
okay.
and he just doesn't have the experience.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. What I would say, the problem with Luke, if you look at this situation, so he gets knocked out by Vitor after already being the Strikeforce champ and then coming across to the UFC. Desperate to get back on the winning track and show everybody, he rushes straight back in. And okay, he doesn't get knocked out for a while, he actually wins 5 fights in a row, but he's also reeling those fights off quite quickly. Gets knocked out by Michael Bisping. Desperate to get his belt back. Desperate. Takes the David Brandt fight way too quickly. Okay, he wins that, no issue. But then he dives into the Yoel Romero fight. Why? Because he's just desperate to get his belt back. Interim, fuck it. Okay, it doesn't work out very well for him.
No.
You know, so then he has all the injuries, and then he moves up to light heavyweight. Never a good move. Never a good move. And he fights the wrong guy at light heavyweight. He didn't know it was the wrong guy. But as history's proven, that was the wrong fucking guy to fight at that particular time. Luke's had a rough ride of it. He hasn't always had the right situation, and I don't think he looked after himself in the way that maybe he should have done to maybe cover some of those injuries. And, you know, there's probably a lot of passing involved as well. And sometimes it's the rub of the green man, but for a guy that had kind of become a meme joke over the last few years, to lose that fight, but still come out of that fight with everybody's respect in a way that maybe they didn't even give you when you were champion. That says a lot, man. And I said it about Leon. It's not about what you do. It's about how you make people feel. The way people will have felt, the image in people's mind of him smearing his blood in Costa's face at the end, and just this triumphant, like, I'm not gonna beat you, but I'm gonna fucking make this, as I'm gonna make this uncomfortable for you. I'm gonna get the last laugh here. It's epic, man. That's the stuff of fucking legends. When they announce him into the Hall of Fame, they're gonna use that image, that little bit of video, in his show reel.
Yeah, I think fair enough. I've got to be honest, at the end of it, I figured there was a good chance he was going to retire, but I was really hoping he wouldn't. Just thought maybe if you just train consistently 6-9 months, we could really fucking see something here. But for anyone following on Instagram, you saw our Rupert Murdoch post. It's just getting too fucking old. Getting too old for this shit.
Goddamn right. And listen, not a bad time to call it a day. Go off the back of that. You're not going to have a better fight to leave on.
No, and you've mended some bridges with Dana White there as well. Dana White,
100%.
all the fight week, was fucking thinking, I hate Rockhold, I can't wait to see him get knocked out. By the end of that fight, Dana White's like, nah, we're good. You did the business. We could be friends again.
Quickly on Paulo Costa, it's good that he's set the losing streak aside and got back on the win column, but I think the way that this fight ended up playing out, Luke Rockhold is very much the story of this fight coming out, not him. And I think that is longer term in terms of his position and his standing in the division. I think that's going to prove to be more of a negative than maybe he realises right now.
Maybe, but let's just pick up something you've already said. You know, the energy was different when he was coming out, looked leaner, made weight no issue. As a fighter, he is back. Okay, whether it's mentally he's as switched on as he needs to be, I don't know. Jury's still out on that. But as a fighter, he is back. Okay, and Rockhold did not make that fight easy for him. Obviously, we talked about their fighting at altitude. I'm halfway excited to see what Paulo Costa does next, and I can't remember the last time I felt that way. It's been a while.
There you go. There you go. It was a hell of a top two fight with all the insanity. Third fight, Dan. To be honest, this is probably the fight that felt like it was the least obviously affected by the altitude. Obviously, they're smaller guys, I'm sure that helps. I don't really want to dwell on this too much, man. It's just...
Well, I think Jose was feeling it. Because...
yeah, he just didn't have
Merab
that.
Came at him in a way that Aldo would usually eat a guy up. Merab did not seem to come out with a good game plan. I mean, obviously, everything was very effective and it worked tremendously well. He wins the fight. But looking at it on paper, I'm like, that's exactly how Jose Aldo wants a guy to come at him. You know, he landed a great knee on one of those level changes. It's just he wouldn't let the hands go. When he got into, you know, leg kicking, liver shot hooking, chin uppercut in range, he just wasn't doing anything. And Merab wasn't hiding things well enough. Apart from those two spinning back fists, well, the first one in particular, very nicely executed. But for the most part, Jose was just getting the same looks he's seen before, in the same way that he's absolutely just torn through guys. I don't know if it was just the altitude. I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a training camp injury or something, but that wasn't the Jose Aldo we're used to. Yeah, probably. I mean, you're making the last of your weight cut at altitude as well. Touch of altitude sickness, the dehydration. Yeah. But that's not like that's not how I was expecting Aldo to come out in this fight. fair play to Marab, you know, and once he saw that that he was going to be able to take it like that on the feet and to just constantly threaten the takedowns, he knew he didn't have to take him down to secure one. He was just putting rounds in the bank. First round in the bank, second round in the bank.
I really wish some of those attempted takedowns against the cage, not so much in the third round, because I thought in the third round he was doing enough to stay active. That clinch should have been stopped a few times, man, in the second round. He wasn't doing anything apart from stalling, and I hate seeing a guy win a round like that. It's not meant to be how rounds are scored. It's not meant to be how the fight is played out. If you sense a guy doing that, you're meant to break them up.
Was he still going for the knees to the legs in the second round? Did he just kind of hold him on the fence or try to
and the thing is that he changed this in the third round, also because I think Aldo started flagging more, so he realised he could kind of exert and have a bit more success and make things happen, and land some punches as well. But it's this thing where he goes, well, if I actually try and really push this, I'm going to tire myself out, and I might give Aldo the position to maneuver and get away. But if I just stay like this, he's not being taken down, but he can't really do anything. And if the ref doesn't clinch me out like he should do, I might get lucky and win this round if the judges see it this way. It's just, I didn't like this, man. I didn't like the situation. I thought Aldo won the first round. I thought Desvili clearly won the third. But that second round, man, the ref should have intervened. And even without the intervention, man, I don't feel that should be scored positively. I think you should negate that. Look at the effective control and striking, which you'd still say the effective shots went to Aldo. I think you can make an argument he won that second round. But
you gave Aldo the first?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I actually gave Marab all 3 rounds.
No, I clearly gave Aldo the first. He outlanded him very distinctly. He landed very clean shots. By all metrics of the scoring criteria, he won that fight. He won that round.
I felt like Marab wasn't landing cleanly, but I just felt like he was doing as much damage, if not more, and just staying a little more busy. And just I felt actually, how did the judges guys see? Yeah, Lee and Diamata gave him the first round as well. Fair enough. Yeah, honestly I gave all 3 to Marab. It's not his best performance, but he is a fucking problem for just about everyone in this weight class once he gets his game going.
From Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, real pity to break up that friendship. I don't know, shit. You know, what do? I mean, no one really gave Nate Diaz any shit when Gilbert Melendez was Strikeforce champ, when he got the title shot in the UFC. He was always just like, hey, if Gil's number 1 and I'm number 2, I'm happy. I think Marab's kind of got the same mentality. Dana White's already kind of called him out on it, but I don't know. What the fuck are you supposed to do? I mean, fight out your contract, take a big money move to PFL or Bellator, maybe.
Do you know what the sad part is? I think Aldo could have beaten either TJ or Sterling. I think if he got past Marab, I would have had him as favourite to get a title shot and win the belt. But
would have been nice.
Hey, it's not the way it goes. Right, well, I mean, the nice thing about the next 2 fights up is that they weren't affected by the altitude because they lasted less than 6 minutes.
Yeah, Wu Yanan just doesn't have any luck in the UFC. She's lost 4 or 5 now. Just
4 straight.
Yeah. Pudilova looks a lot better than the first time she was in the UFC. I like the way she switched up from the submission to the ground and pounds. It wasn't a super high level fight, but you know, Pudilova's coming back. Wu's got that monkey on her back of the losing streak. How much more do you want to kind of say on this one? I know we want to go through them quick.
I think you said everything that needs to be said. So let's talk about 54 seconds of Tyson Pedro really beating a guy that probably shouldn't be in the UFC.
Yeah, Tyson Pedro is a big fan of job and knock. I'm on a day rate. If I can do it in 5 minutes, if I could do it in a minute, I fucking would. Good
Otherwise,
fucking
my
kick.
dad will stab me again.
Yeah. It was dad taking him down at the end as well, putting him in side control. His dad looks a bit crazy.
His dad is a bit crazy. But it was entertaining. Good way to kick off the card. I mean, really, the main card, Aldo broke my heart, but the other 4 fights fully delivered. It was a great main card for entertainment. Just sucks. I'll tell you what doesn't sit well with me, man, is I do kind of look back at this and think how many of these results might have been different if this was fought at sea level. Like, does Luke Rockhold have a better showing? Or does Costa not get tired and finish him? You know, does Edwards win that fight on decision instead of knockout? Does Leonardo Santos not look completely done and useless after 3 minutes against Jared Gordon? Okay, he would have looked useless after 6 minutes at sea level, but still.
Yeah. He was only going to buy a little extra time. You know, and time ultimately is not his friend. He's just too old for it. Yeah, look, obviously it's going to be better to have these fights at sea level. I don't know why they insist on doing pay-per-views or even really any event at super high altitude. But, fuck, you got a manager for a reason. They should be pushing to get you on a different card. The next pay-per-view is only 3 weeks after it, you know? Like, don't sign the fucking contract, I guess. Just, what are these people thinking? Unless you think you're the one that's going to have an edge over your opponent, if you're going to do the preparation for it.
I don't think Curtis Blades has an issue with fights being in Utah.
No, probably not. He's a bit of a freak, though. Plus, at heavyweight, you know that if you have got a little bit of an advantage there, it's really going to pay dividends, because how many other people in your weight class can hang like that way up in the sky?
Well, I'll tell you what felt very noticeable with it. It seemed to be that if the guys that tried to go at like quite a measured, consistent pace didn't seem to be affected as badly. But if you burnt the gas tank, if you kind of like huffed and puffed yourself out at any point or tried to explode too much, it just didn't seem like anybody could recover. And I feel the fight that really shows this is Romanov versus Tybura, where I think obviously both guys were affected, but Tybura stayed at a much more measured, consistent pace, whereas Romanov kind of fought at the pace that used to get him tired, but the last couple of fights he's been like, well, I'm fit now, this is what I do, I can do this all day now. And obviously dominated so much in that first round that just didn't have...
That's part of it, but then also you either you go for the finish or you just wear on the guy and take the round. Not this, I'm going to kind of ride the fence, maybe I'm going to get the finish, maybe not. Too many of those shots at the end of that first round weren't landing, or he was like trying to throw at such a weird angle to get a response from Tybura. As Cormier and Rogan are waxing bullshit on how Tybura down on one knee is carrying all the weight, when really he isn't. Romanov's not forcing him to try and get up or to react or move. And he's just kind of resting and kind of have half a guard up. And Romanov is just very slowly and consistently burning himself out across that last minute and a half. I just thought it was a fool's errand. If go for the knockout, go for the fucking finish, force the ref to make a decision and step in. Or save your fucking arms, save your fucking legs, save your shoulders. Just a very stupid move, and at altitude definitely amplified. That was definitely a factor. But this was some poor fucking decision making. And then in the third round, all the kind of showboating and the skipping and skirting around, just, mate, have a sense of urgency. Don't shit the bed.
That's trying to amp yourself up. That's trying to give yourself a little bit of a break in the action. It's that feeling of trying to get the, you know, it's like when guys do sort of like a little hop step. They're just trying to feel like they've got some blood flowing through the arms again. But he was a defeated man. Great note, Flash Gordon, I thought, good win for him, very solid. You know, dominated a dangerous guy.
Getting a good amount of fouling in fence grabs.
Okay, gets the job done, doesn't it, apparently. Tybura, listen man, he wins fights like this, you know? He has this ability to kind of just stay alive and, you know, turn the tide when guys kind of fuck up and... burn
He's
their
not a
energy
bad fighter.
reserves, you know.
He's not a bad fighter at all. Romanov let him off the hook though.
Is it just me, or do these guys literally both look like they're the same character in a video game, but with different skin selections?
A little bit. In that third round in particular, definitely. Alright. Romanov will be back. He will be better for this. Sometimes you need to be humbled to understand how fucking poor your fight IQ is. Jared Gordon, Leonardo Santos. Gordon just going to carry on moving forward. Santos.
Yeah.
Where do you go from here, man? And
It's
why?
time.
I think he was just trying to get
man.
one more good contract, but it's just not going to happen.
Nah. They're on the verge of cutting him, dude. That's 3 on the bounce. He's 42. It's
one of the best in the division in his day. Just too many injuries.
beat Thiago Santos. It's tough. A man who is now 3 weight divisions separated from him.
Yeah.
He
is a different kind of beast. He was if he had stayed healthy, he would have been one of those unicorns. You know, can grapple, can strike, smart guy. Used to be able to push a good pace, but fucking
All
MMA
things
gods
change.
are thirsty.
Damn fucking straight. Let's talk about a couple of really good fights that I thought were on this card as well. I thought the AJ Fletcher Andalusa fight was sensational. Great.
If a little low level.
Guys, man. Yeah, but
Fun.
you know what? AJ Fletcher's got a lot to learn. Andalusa really survived that explosion that, you know, Fletcher had to try and turn the tide. And, you know, I thought this was entertaining. Obviously, the Woodson Saldana fight had all sorts of insanity. That was the fight that I first started looking at being like, I think altitude's going to be a problem.
Yeah, or just fucking... they shouldn't have let Woodson continue without the doctor looking at him. The second that Woodson was like, yeah, let's carry on, even though he'd been blatantly fouled, should have taken the time, cleared his head, should have got a DQ. I think if you get a doctor in there and they go, this kid's fucking spacey right now, call this one, he would have got a DQ win for that. Woodson got robbed. Saldana looked like a bit of a twat. He really should have had him. He should have just been smarter about that, not showboated so much, and just finished it in a more surgical manner.
2 of the worst mistakes I've ever seen, and they happened 15 to 20 seconds apart from each other. The smiling and pointing at the centre of the octagon when you've just flatlined your opponent to the ground, and it's not going to take much. But then the stupidity of you knock him down again, and then decide you're going to point at him, and then flying knee him in the face when he's on the ground. It's like, I mean, talk about snatching what should have been defeat from the jaws of victory through your own stupidity. It ended up being a draw. But, yeah, I mean, you know, Woodson has a lot to be upset about. But I'd say this, Woodson's got a lot to work on, man. He uses the hands too much. Obviously, he's got great boxing, but as we saw in the main event, too much of a boxing fundamentals can open you up to other weapons.
Yeah. And frankly, if you're just charging in like that, the first check hook that dropped him, yeah, it's a little silly. He really shouldn't have made it that easy for Saldana. I don't know, do you reckon Mike Beltran could have taken a second point there? I mean, you can take 2 points for an egregious foul that has definitely affected the fight.
I would have considered it. I think he looks at it as maybe its first offence. But the problem is it's such a stupid offence. It's not like he accidentally did it. It's not like Anders against Darren Stewart, where it's like, you know, one guy's kind of playing that grounded, ungrounded game against the cage. You know, it's not even like the PT Yan situation where it's like, okay, listen, it's a title fight, man. It's round 4. These guys are tired. Those mental lapses and concentration happen.
Yeah, he's also not close enough to not be able to see his feet. You've robbed the guy. You can see him slowly, staggeringly getting up, very clearly on one knee. And then you close those last 2 yards off your feet, knee cocked. Just... I like both guys. I think both
was-
guys are going to go on to have a lot of good fights in the UFC. This one is a fucking stupid one, and I'm glad it's behind us.
Yeah. That's pretty much all the major things I want to talk about. Obviously,
Ooh,
fair play.
Amir Albatsi
Altamirano
looked
gets a
pretty
win.
fucking good with, against Little Figgy.
Fuck, that reminds me. Yeah, he did look good. He did look good. Looked very sharp. He's a problem.
Oriki Lang against Jay Perrin was a good one. Perrin after that first
Good fight.
first round really put up a good fight. Just got outclassed, to be honest. And that first fight, I thought Altamirano was out of that one until he pulled it back. That was a great fucking finish. So overall, a really
Started the
good
card
card.
well.
Yeah.
It was very entertaining. It's just watching it live. The feeling that the altitude had as much of an effect as it did kind of made me feel uneasy about fights. I think in the end it did lead to some extreme entertainment, and all's well that ends well. We got the mother of all fucking finishes. I mean, people are talking about this being one of the greatest head kick knockouts of all time. And
It's up
I
there
mean-
because of the context, circumstance, but
circumstance, it's certainly up there, man. And fuck, man, I'll tell you what, the new champs this year, fuck me, the guys that have won new belts this year have done it in some style, man. Amanda Nunes reclaiming her belt with a fucking cracker of a performance. The fight of the year contender between Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. The fight of the year, probably winner for this year, between Jiri Prochaska and Glover. I mean, here's the crazy thing. If this fight happens 3 months earlier, that's the latest ever knockout finish in the title fight. Or that's the latest ever finish in the title fight. But unfortunately, Yuri sinks that choke in, and with 28 seconds left, and...
Wait, what about Mighty Mouse? Shit, I'm spacing on his fucking name now.
Challenger.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, a
okay.
challenger winning. As in a belt being claimed at the latest points in the fight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because for the winner to retain, it's going to be impossible to beat that one. You have to come down in milliseconds. No joke. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been a good year for MMA so far. Long may it continue. We've got.
We
a little bit of a
had
break
that
next week.
weird spell. We had that weird spell with the injuries in main events, and there are a couple of bad cards. And
There's never a perfect year. There's never a perfect year, but there was a lot of bad years. You know, this year hasn't let us down too much. I'd say really kind of the main sort of letdown for me was the second London card being as flat as it was, and obviously the way having consecutive main events end with an injury in the first round, that always sucks.
UFC 276 was a little bit of a motherfucker to the heart. That wasn't great. But you know what? I really enjoyed 277. 278 was great. I'm looking forward to UFC Paris. They've added Li Jingliang versus Tony Ferguson at welterweight, which I've got a lot of issues with, and we're going to talk about on the pick show, but certainly stacks that card up a little bit.
Wait, is that for Paris or for 279?
279.
Okay, cool.
But we'll talk about it when we do the picks for 279. Sorry, I said Paris, but I meant 279 for the picks. I have issues with this fight, but we'll talk about it.
It's kind of a theme for 279 though, isn't it?
And rumours have it that we might be getting John Jones versus Stipe as the main event of 282. And Carlos Paz versus Weili Zhang for 281 as well.
Yeah, you can't say anything's a foregone conclusion this year, but I feel like I'm going to put a bit of money on that one. Man, I need this Stipe John Jones fight. I've been talking about this fight pretty much since we've been doing this podcast. I need that fight.
What, Jones versus Stipe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all do, man. And before Stipe's 40, please, let him have a realistic chance in that.
It's not like John Jones has got life-changing power at 205. At 265, you know, he's going to have a bit more bulk, but he's going to be the one having to really adjust to what it's like fighting with that kind of weight on you and how it's going to impact like your speed and your footwork. And from the training footage we've seen and the way he talks about it, I don't know if he's really mentally connected that much in training as well, you know. Still, I fucking can't wait for that
And
fight.
you know Stipe's a pro. You know Stipe's going to be crossing all the I's and dotting all the T's. I know I said that the wrong way round, but I'm dyslexic.
Doesn't matter. What's the Wayne's World one? He's talking with the guy with like I think he's got one eye or he's got a lazy eye. He goes cross the T's and dot the lowercase J's.
Yeah, he says lowercase J's. That is in
Wayne's World
2.
2. Yeah.
Is that the one where they try and put on Wayne stock?
Yeah. Yeah, and if you've watched the documentary for Woodstock '99, they did a much
So good,
fucking
that
better job of it.
documentary. Yeah, that documentary. Anybody who hasn't seen Trainwreck Woodstock '99, watch this fucking documentary. It is sensational. And then watch Untold, which I haven't watched yet, but I'm going to watch tonight, and I'm very curious about this Catchfish Theo thing.
It's good.
And I'll tell you what, House of the completely off topic, but fuck it, we're going there.
Yeah.
I actually like it, man. I thought it was.
It was fucking great.
The only thing I'd say. Okay, so it's a really small thing, and I actually understand what happened. So you know how there were like 6 or 7 different spin-offs that were given pilots or something like that, or like this wasn't the first idea by any stretch, or it was one of many different ideas, and a lot of these pilots didn't work. My criticism is I felt like we got 2 episodes worth of things happen in 1 episode, and it made it very action-packed, but I felt like there were so many characters that I barely met, like Queen Aemma, for example. And then, no spoilers, but things happen. And I just would have liked, I feel like classic Game of Thrones in those early seasons, that would have been like 2 episodes to build up and pay off the gravitas. Now, I can understand why they did it, because if you know that, like, Game of Thrones didn't end well, you're not necessarily going to be greenlit just because it's related to Game of Thrones, and you've already seen some other pilots not quite grab.
Also, Game of Thrones came in under the radar. It wasn't until maybe season 3 that people really picked up on it. For the first 2 seasons, I was literally going up to people and I was going, stop calling me a nerd, watch this fucking show, and I swear to God, we'll bet it right now. £10. If you don't enjoy it, if you're willing to lie to me and pretend you didn't enjoy it, I will give you £10. I made a good amount of fucking money out of that. It was like 8 different people ended up giving me a fucking tenner. That's how fucking good that show was across 2 seasons and no one gave a fuck. But this is the other thing, right? Game of Thrones came in under the radar. This one has to meet a certain level of expectation. And I don't know if it's just because I haven't watched Game of Thrones or some of the worst, like the gorier episodes in a while. But like, this was a lot fucking gorier.
There's one scene in particular, like, that's pretty fucking hard to watch, I'm not going to lie.
The genital removal, yeah? Or the...
we don't need to... No spoilers.
Right.
So we don't want to ruin this for our audience, but... Yeah, be prepared. There's some pretty graphic shit in this first episode. One thing I'm very excited about as well, I kind of think that the weakest part of Game of Thrones was the White Walker stuff. And I kind of like the idea of, I know there's one hint towards it, but we're probably not going to see any White Walkers. And I really like the fact that it's going to be the politics and the different factions and how everybody relates to each other. And yeah, man, after being cautiously... Like, I would, not even cautiously optimistic, I was quite suspicious about this. I wasn't sure if I was going to even sort of, you know, watch it from episode 1. I'm in, I'm back. It's a great world, willing to give it a go. Different showrunners, I like the writing. Matt Smith was awesome. Definitely the best character so far.
Same theme tune. Why change it?
Yeah, pretty much. Doesn't have to have, you know, gone for the lack of credits, but I'll dig it. And I'll tell you what, man. I'm nervous about the Rings of Power, but the fact that this has been good makes me a little bit more optimistic for that, if that makes sense. It's like, okay, these 2 things I was nervous for, one of them seems to have hit it out the blocks, so maybe I don't need to be nervous for the other one.
I don't think so.
But it's also episode 1. It's also episode 1. Game of Thrones, the issues weren't episode 1. The issues came later. They got that first part right.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got fucking 5, 6 seasons. 6 seasons really, really well done. And then...
I agree.
7 not too bad, and then 8, yeah. Yeah, man. I have got to shoot now, unfortunately.
I have got 1% battery. So guys,
Perfect.
thanks for watching.
Bye, Laurie.
Like, subscribe, comment.
Bye, Dave.
Bye, Laurie. Bye, Dave. All of that jazz. Back for the pick show next week. Peace out.